This video is going to be the entire explicit and recursive sequences practice worksheet, so that if you're stuck on any part of it, you can watch this video to get help. All right, at the top, I give you your formulas for explicit and recursive. This is kind of how you will always find, like if you're ever looking for, wait, what does the explicit formula look like? You can look at this and this for the recursive. Notice the recursive always has two parts. If you're ever wondering how you find a common difference, D, which is the common difference, or a constant difference, you'll hear it spoken of as both constant or common, because it's the same every time, which makes it common and constant, is if you can't figure out what that constant difference is, you take a term and you subtract a previous term. So if you're ever stuck, like, how do you figure out the constant difference? That's how you do that. And I'll show you that on a couple of these. We'll do that, where it's not like obvious right on the outset. All right, let's start with number one. The first term, a sub 1, remember, means the first term, is 12. The constant difference, maybe on this first one, it's not real obvious, so you can always take a term. Well, 12, we can't subtract the previous term because we don't have it, but we can from 14.5. So we can take 14.5 and subtract 12, or we could take 17 and subtract 14.5, or we could take 19.5 and subtract 17. If you do any of these in your calculator, you're going to see that you get 2.5 every time, which is why it's called the constant or common difference. And it's positive, so it's plus 2.5. So my explicit formula is a sub n equals the first term, I'm following this right here, 12 plus the constant difference of 2.5 times n minus 1. For the recursive formula, I always have a sub 1 is my first term, that's why it's a sub 1, that's 12. And a sub n, this should be an n, by the way, not an a sub 2, that must be a typo, is the a sub n minus 1, which means previous term, plus the constant difference, plus 2.5. I want you to notice that in the recursive formula, this always starts like this on every recursive formula. A sub n equals the previous term, and then you do something to that previous term. That's what makes it recursive. It's saying it's recurring. Take the previous term and add 2.5, and take that term and add 2.5. It's a recurring process. Let's go to number 2. My first term is 2. To me, this looks pretty obvious that I'm adding 6. So my explicit is first term, which is 2 plus 6 times n minus 1. In my recursive formula, my first term is 2, and then a sub n equals a sub n minus 1. Notice I always start my recursive formula the same way, and then plus 6. This next one, my first term is 5. Not quite sure. I'm going to maybe come over here to the side and do 26 minus 5, and I get 21. Let's make sure I get the same thing when I take 47 minus 26. Yes, I get 21. So I know that my constant difference is 21. And it's positive, so plus 21. So I have a sub n equals 5 plus 21 times n minus 1. For my recursive formula, my first term is 5, and a sub n is my previous term. Notice again, always start that recursive part the same, and plus 21. Okay, number 4. Start at -2. What's happening here? If I'm not sure, I always take term. I could take -5 and subtract the previous term, which is -2. And I get -3. Let's make sure the same thing happens here. Let's take -8 and subtract -5. Comes plus plus, and I get -3. So my constant difference is -3. A sub n is my first term, -2, plus the constant difference, which is -3 times n minus 1. For my recursive formula, my first term is -2, and then I say a sub n equals the previous term. Notice again, every time I start it the same way, -3. Number 5. First term is -10. If you're not sure what's happening here, constant difference is always term minus previous term, which would be 3. Let's try it on the other one, -4 minus -7, and I get 3, so plus 3. So a sub n is -10 plus 3 times n minus 1. Recursive formula, first term is -10. A sub n is the previous term. Always start the same way. I know I keep repeating myself, this is just something that every year people get confused with. And add 3. Okay, number 6. Here I don't have my terms, but they tell me here that my first term is -8, and I'm going to add 2. So if I add 2 to -8, I get -6. If I add 2 to -6, I get -4. And if I add 2 to -4, I get -2. So my first term is -8. I'm adding 2. So my explicit formula is -8 plus 2 times n minus 1. Right, number 7. Once again, I've got an instance where I haven't been given the terms. I start at 2.6, and I'm going to subtract 3. All right, if you want to use your calculator for this, you can. 2.6, subtract 3, I get -0.4. I'm going to subtract 3, and I get -3.4. Once you have done the same operation like this twice in your calculator picks it up as a pattern, and now you can just hit enter, and it knows to subtract 3. So my next term would be -6.4, but you have to do it twice in a row. So my first term is 2.6. I am subtracting 3. And so a sub n is 2.6 minus 3 times n minus 1. I should again notice on both of these recursive formulas, I always started with the a sub n equals a sub n minus 1. Right, here I'm given the explicit formula. I'm going to go ahead and write my recursive. A sub 1 must be 53. A sub n is the previous term. Again, always start that way. And I'm subtracting 7. So my first term is 53. I'm subtracting 7. So I can do this if I need to. I can use my calculator. I'll show you how this works again. 53 minus 7. And I get 46. I have to just hit -7. And then I get 39. Now it'll pick it up as a pattern. 32. And you can just hit enter. Okay. And let's go to 9 and 10. In 9 and 10, you're to use the given explicit formula to find the 40th term in the sequence, which means you're going to let n equal 40. So a sub 40 is 5 plus 21 times, I actually do this in my head. I know that 40 minus 1 is 39. And then I can just type this into my calculator. 5 plus 21 times 39, and I get 24. Let's go here to number 10. A sub n, I'm looking for a sub 40. That's 2.6 minus 3. Again, 40 minus 1, I know is 39. So I'm going to go to my calculator. 2.6 minus 3 times 39. And I get negative 114.4.